But anyhow, so we install our virtual machines. That's number one. Once the virtual machines are installed, we start working with, first of all, create Active Directory on them. Right?
Yep.
Next thing, get this connection between server and S2. Agree? So we got that thing. Because these are going to be static addresses, aren't they? Right? Ping, see everything's okay. Then we can work on this host. Right? By assigning a static address. See if it can. Agreed?
Yes.
Once we have, just a minute, once we have got that connectivity, then we can start working with other services. Yeah.
Oh, you already kind of put on whatever.
Start the network, start the domain.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. You got Active Directory. I'm sorry, I forgot that thing. Yeah. So basically, you'll have to join with the domain as well. Okay. So once the link is working, everything, and join the domain. So once these domains have been joined, put a static address on the ping. If it works, you know connectivity is there. Next thing you want to make sure, DHCP. DNS you install while you are installing Active Directory. Wind you can install anytime you want. After that you can install. So DHCP, first, the next thing is to make sure DHCP is working with that client. Right? So install your DHCP, create that single scope for this, set up the scope options, right? And then set that to automatic. See if it works. If it doesn't work, you know the problem is either your setup of the DHCP or something on your host. But those interfaces should have been already taken care of because before the ping, the interfaces were active, right? And basically what you're doing with your virtual machine, you want to make sure the interfaces on all these three is local. Local only, right? So if the DHCP is working here, this part of the this network, this segment is clear. Any problem with that? You don't even look at the other side yet. Yeah.
Just kind of a question with, I guess, the virtualization of the multiple interfaces. So you're technically going to be, so S2 is going to technically have two LAN interfaces, one for the router and then one for the client.
That's right. It's got two interfaces. S1 will have two interfaces, one for this subnet and one for this subnet. Is that what you're talking about?
Kind of.
Well, what are you? I don't want to kind of. What are you specifically talking about?
Well, I'm just wondering for the client, trying to see that one. So is it going to be, I'm just wondering what one it's going to be directly connected to. It's going to be connected to the router or?
Soho.
We haven't even reached that stage yet.
He's saying, does S2 have two interfaces for the hosts? No.
S2? No.
That's what he was asking.
No. Why would it have two interfaces? No, but I mean, why did you even think about it, that it should have two interfaces? Where that came from?
S1 and S2.
Be quiet. No.
That was pretty much my rationale that S1 would be connected to the servers and then.
No. What did we say? This is one subnet and this is another subnet. You will need two interfaces only if they were connected to two different networks, won't you?
Just think like there's a switch in between them. There's a switch.
So you're using a switch, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You should have a switch there. Yes.
We don't have a switch, so. Yeah.
Reality.
Like
right?
he says,
Reality.
in a real environment,
Well, I know in a
there
real-
will be a switch there.
Yeah, I
of
know in
course.
a real environment there would be a switch.
Yeah, there will be a
I'm wondering
switch.
How it would be used in the actual virtual
Yeah, but I didn't put a switch there. It confuses other people too. So I kept it simple. Because you're doing this local connection internally. Okay? So anyhow, so once this is done, what would be the next step? What should we be looking at next? Then we have to concentrate on S1 now. We're going to move this way towards the network, right? So what should we be doing with S1? Turn it into a router. So what do you need? You install the more RRAS role on it, right? Then once you have done that, go into the management of RRAS, that utility. There's a field there to turn it into a router, right? You turn it into a router. Then once you have turned it into a router, ideally or theoretically, you don't have to do anything else to it, because these are directly connected interfaces. You don't need any routing protocols or anything, right? They're directly connected interfaces on that router. If it doesn't work, you have a problem. It's a good idea to put the default gateway for this interface. This should be the default gateway. For this default gateway. Whatever problem you might have, that should clear it up.
You say that you create the surgical gateway on each side with the respective products?
Yes, sir.
Because in my
Whenever you look at an interface, you assign an IP address to it and you put a default gateway, don't you? That's what you're doing.
The problem I'm having, what I'm trying to do, I know I can assign the interfaces on S1 statically, but I'm trying to make a reservation on the DHCP for those interfaces, so they're assigned through the MAC addresses.
Why you?
No, my problem is that half of it is work and the other half doesn't.
You're making it complex. Keep it simple.
It's not fun.
You can, if you want to do it, make it fun, that's fine. No, I mean, if you want to make your life difficult, fine. Yeah, you can make it complex. You can put more complexities if you want. You can put a static address, but you can make a reservation for those address in the DHCP, right? If you want to, based on the MAC address.
But when I do that, one interface gets the reserved address and the other one doesn't.
No, it does say you can do it. It will work if it's set up properly. Okay, so the next thing, as I said, you make that router work. So how do you test if that router is working? Ping from the host here, right? Not ping from here, each interface. Okay, ping from here or from there. That should be okay because we tested that already before, right? Ping the far side of that router. If you are able to successfully ping that, you know your router is working. Yes? The next thing is, so once we have done that, now this host, that's going to be a bit tricky. Because in the real world, basically, you'll be physically, you know where you're going to connect that computer to the switch. It's that switch is either going to be there or that switch is going to be either over here. Right? In real life. But here, since we're working in a virtual environment, so what we have to do is, we want to make sure somehow this host knows that it has to connect to this logical connection, not to this. In virtual PC, the only way I can do it, and that's what I told every one of you, is to make sure if you make all these as a local interfaces and make this as the actual physical interface, whatever it is on the physical interface on the card interface on those computers, if you turn that to that, like which is a Broadcom, right? If you put it on your PCs, if you put that to both Broadcom, then it will assign itself to this segment of the network and not this. So anyway, that's the interface. So before we do that, assign, okay? So you first will take care of the interfaces, then assign a static address. This side, on this segment. Then pick, see if you can pick. Yeah? If you're able to ping here, then you know this host belongs on that segment. It's already there logically. And then ping the far side. If that works fine, what's the next thing? Go back to DHCP. Set up the scope for this now. Right? Set up the scope and put the DHCP options, scope options, and then set that to auto, and it should work. See, the reason why I put this up is basically you're doing this one step at a time. Yeah, I know. Just wait. Does everybody clear on this now? The only reason I brought this up is because this chapter we're talking about troubleshooting and all that, setting it up. It's basically whenever you set up a network or troubleshooting, you take it piece at a time, okay, and do it methodologically or whatever. Okay, so do it in a logical fashion. Yes, sir.
So a question about the router. So when I did my router, I added interfaces. Is that the correct way?
Yeah, when you create a router, it has to have a minimum of 2 interfaces. Okay. So once you have done that, so your DHCP is working, your network is working properly, the last portion is NAP.
Last but not least.
Last portion is NAP. You want to make sure NAP is done. Okay. Now, if you install NAP here, and that's what you should be installing, you configure the NPS role. You install that role there first, then configure it based on the YouTube video I showed you. Remember that? That has all the details. The only thing which was missing in that video was the NAP option for DHCP. And those options, they have to be set up in the DHCP for this client to work properly. So when you set up a DHCP in a DHCP, you go into scope option, and there are standard options which we use for these. Okay. Then there's also option for NAP. So if you go to the DHCP, go into scope option, go to advanced, and put it down to NAP options. Then in the NAP option, put the same one, the default gateway, DNS, and the domain name. Those are the only 3 you need. Once you got those going, you'll see NAP is going to work. No problem. Works beautifully.
You said about the 3 options.
Default gateway, DNS, and the domain name. I think that's the option number 16, isn't it? 3, 5, and 16, I believe, isn't it?
3, 6.
Or 3, 6, 15? Yeah. Okay. 3, 6, 15, I've got to know that. 3 is the gateway, 6 is the DNS, and the 15 is the name. Those are the options you need. Okay, guys? Any questions?
You're not going to answer the question about VMware. VM player for that particular.
That is your headache, not my headache. From day one, I told you, if you work with your virtual PC, I'll be able to help you. If you work with VMware, I haven't used it. No, I'm not being nasty or anything. I haven't used it, and I haven't had time to play around with it. So if you have a problem, I know it's going to involve a little more me digging into it to find the answer to those questions. That's why I avoid it. But I will, one of these days, I will learn it. I haven't played with the VMware. Yes?
The server one is the host default gateway.
Yes? Servo? Well, you tell me.
What about server?
Just a minute. I'm going to ask you. If you're on this host 2,
Yeah.
nobody else says a thing. If you're on host 2, what should be the default gateway on setup here? Which interface? Be quiet.
The one.
Right, S1. Why should it be S1 and not this?
Yeah, I know, but
Why? I'm asking you a question. Why here, not this? Somebody else tell me now. Why this and not this?
Because all the time the default gateway should be the router interface. It should interface to another network.
No, logical answer is there's a one network in this room and another network in the next room.
Okay.
And the only way to go into the other network is through that door.
Yeah.
We're trying to get into this network here. What is the door? This is the only door. No good God coming over here. Doesn't that make sense?
Even they are in the same room, they should go through these ways.
Sorry?
Even they are two in the same room, they should go to the router door and connect.
You want to go to the door which leads to the outside world. This is the internal, that's one LAN, that's another LAN. So to get to the other LAN, you have to go to the door which connects to the other room. And that door is called the router or the gateway. Okay, that's all it is. Okay, any other question, guys?
How does the H1 network know which scope to grab off DHCP?
I just told you that. If you set the interfaces correctly, you shouldn't have a problem. Set this to local only in your virtual PC. When you look at the virtual PC console and if you look at the networking property, if you open it up and look at the settings of that in your virtual PC, in the setting, you can have a maximum of 4 interfaces in a virtual machine. So in here, we need 2 of them. All these, for this side, set those virtual face to local only. For this side over here, set it to the actual physical card which is there.
Okay, no, I'm not asking that. Let's just say there's 5 scopes on the DHCP, right?
Okay.
We have 5, right? How does H1 network know which one to grab?
In virtual PC, you will have a problem. But in your VMware, you can create, what was it called? Segments.
Segment.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm just wondering which scope would it grab?
Oh,
Which one would it grab?
oh, that's easy.
Because of the network.
No, you tell me. The question is, I didn't understand the question, but his question is, okay, we have already located this H1 over here, but how does it know whether to get an IP address? How does the DHCP know whether to assign it address for this segment or for that segment? That's the question you're asking.
Yeah, it's default gateway.
relay agent.
How does it know that?
Gateway.
Relay agent. That broadcast is coming from this side of the segment, from this network. So once it gets that source address coming from the relay agent, it knows where it came and it will pick up the address from the appropriate scope. You got it?
I just want to know.
No, but that's how it works. That's how it works. Yes, sir.
H1 will able to get the scope because H1, you saying that H1 will able to get the appropriate.
H1 will get the IP address from the appropriate scope because it knows the request came from this network, not from here. Because the relay agent is here.
Because it's based on the.
Relay agent is here, not here. Anyway, you figure it out. All right, let's move on, guys, so I present this thing.
The leg segment just put it
But George came here and turned this computer, I don't know. I have to turn it back on again. short-winded. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, if you're looking for a wireless router,